Hello and welcome to another House of Wisdom lightest and best video, and today we really do have the lightest and best knife. This is the Southard Mini Tolk, and it finally came out and he sent it to me and I got it this week, so I had to bust out a video for you guys. The Southard is based in Tucson, Arizona. He started making knives in 2008. Spyderco historically has manufactured the Southard's design, and then he also made his customs. The positron is one of the designs that Spyderco makes, and I have an example of it here. And there you go. The positron is carbon fiber. It had that Spyderco wire clip. Not a lot to love about the positron. And the other one that Spyderco produced for him was the Southard. It was just called the Southard, and this has the Smock modification. It was originally a little longer than this, both in the blade and the handle, and Kevin Smock used to be a modder, and he started his modding business now. Of course, Kevin Smock makes his own designs and sells his designs to the high industry knife makers. So anyway, the Southard and the positron Spyderco made. At some point, Brad decided to keep his manufacturing in-house. He made the Tolk, which was a larger knife. The Tolk had a blade length of 3.875 inches and weighed 4.3 ounces. And this they cut over a ½ inch off the blade length. The blade length is only 3.28 inches, and the weight is almost half. It's 2.7 ounces. So they've done a lot of good here, and we're going to talk about it. Well, I want to talk about the box first. Now, I'm usually not a fanboy of the packaging, but Brad Southard did such a great job on the box here. It says on it, it's not your grandfather's knife, but it could be. He has this wax seal on it. I don't know if you can appreciate this. This is a fabric-covered box, and it's a magnetic box. And inside, you have this medallion that he machined, and it gives the type of blade steel, the handle material, the inlays, the backspacer and pivot ring, and the type of anodization. And then on the other side, it has his maker's mark, the year he is established, in Tucson, Arizona. So the fit and finish on the packaging is just exceptional, and bam, it's a magnetic box. So that's really cool. I'm not a fanboy of the packaging, but I want to show that because that's really distinct. Let's talk about the specifications of this beautiful knife. The blade length is 3.28 inches. The handle length is 4.2 inches. You can see that copper pivot collar there, and then the copper backspacer. Oh, it's beautiful. Can't wait to talk to you more about it. And the total knife length is 7.46 inches with a weight of 2.7 inches. And I'm going to bring out some of those knives to give a size comparison. We'll start with the positron. It is a bit longer than the positron. And then the Southard with the Smock modification. The original Southard is longer, but the Smock narrowed this down so that it would be legal in the state that he was living in. And then the most comparable knife, I'm going to say, is the Jerry McGinnis Mini X. So it's part of the Pro line of Jerry McGinnis, and these are identical in blade length, handle length, and in weight. Kind of an irony. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later. Okay, talking about this one though, the blade is a Stonewash 20 CV high flat ground blade. The 20 CV, for those of you who haven't used it before, is chemically similar to the Bowler M390, the Carpenter CTS 204P. I'm going to bring up a table here and show you how similar they actually are. Here we have side-by-side comparisons of the metal compositions of the Bowler M390, the Carpenter 204P, and then the Latrobe 20 CV. And actually, Carpenter makes the 20 CV for Latrobe. Latrobe just markets it. But you can see the content of carbon, chromium, magnesium, molybdenum, tungsten, vanadium are pretty much identical. There's a slight difference in the amount of silicon, but it's when a half of 1% difference. So basically, these are comparable steels. There's just a little bit of tweaking to make sure that they don't infringe on one another's patents. Okay, so the blade steel is good blade steel, and it has this Stonewash. There's some jimping on the spine that gives you good traction. There's a little bit of a swell, and then a bird's beak on the end. It has a nice ricasso for sharpening. It falls well ahead of the plunge grind. And the flipper tab is nice. It is deployed by a flipper. Now, whenever I saw a picture of this flipper tab, I saw, uh-oh, this is only a push button, and it push buttons nicely. But you can light switch it too, because the leading edge, that first jump there, catches your finger and you get good traction. And I didn't think it would. I liked it that it was about a 45-degree angle. I think that's the best. But your finger catches that first jump there and it gets good traction. So nothing wrong with the flipping with this at all. And the action is pretty good. As you can tell, it really flips out great. It's not a fall shut knife. You have to shake it shut a little bit. But a lot of people like their knives that way. We'll talk about the handle. The handle is a titanium handle. You can get it in Damascus. It costs a little bit extra. I want to point out the milling pattern here. It has this starburst milling pattern that starts very finely down at the heel of the knife, and then as it progresses, it gets very coarse at the very front. And then there's a mirroring of that on the clip too. It starts fine and then gets coarse, and it has the same line as the milling on the handle, so that's nice. The handle is an anodized titanium. You can choose the type of inserts that you get. They have wood, micarta, Damascus. I chose the micarta because his big brother here, the Southard, had this micarta. And micarta weathers in. I don't know if you can appreciate this, but where my thumb lands on this micarta, it's worn down. It has this old world look, worn out look, and it looks a little fresher and different. So it has this old world look, and I really like it. And so I wanted to choose that as the inlays. The knife that I took a picture of at Blade 2017 had wood inlays. I'll pop up a picture of it so that you can appreciate it. That's really good too. And of course the Damascus inlays, you can get those too. Those are really great. Okay, the lanyard post. It has a back spacer. You get to choose your back spacer. They have copper, bronze, copper and brass. Brass is zinc and copper. Bronze is tin and copper. So the brass has a little more of a gold coupler, and the copper has, well, a little bit more of a copper color. I don't know what you call it except copper. But look at the lanyard post. The lanyard post is completely protected by the back spacer. Another knife maker did that, and I have a copy of that. The nice thing about it is you don't have a lanyard hole on the profile of the knife, and you have a great place to put your lanyard if you're a lanyard guy, and the back spacer protects it from the knife blade. When it's closed, the knife blade can't even get close to it because the back spacer lies between it. This is the VDK Ferro, and it had a similar thing. You look at it from the side and you can't tell that there's a lanyard, and there is a lanyard post which is completely protected by the back spacer. The knife blade doesn't even come close to it because the back spacer lays between the lanyard post and the back spacer. So anyway, other makers do that. I really like that design though. Okay, the back spacer, he charges a little bit extra. I think for anodizing it was $15 extra. For the micarta inlays it cost $25 extra. So all of my upgrade, customized things on this only were $40 extra. I think that's a really reasonable price. For the copper back spacer, it was free. There was no extra charge for that. And that actually is one of my favorite parts of the knife because the micarta and the bronze are such subdued color. The copper really makes it pop. And I got my brand new Torx bit driver, and it's copper also, so they're twin brothers of different mothers. Okay, we'll move on down the knife. The hardware is titanium except for the steel pivot. The construction of the knife has this back spacer. It's mostly cleared out though, and he did some interior milling. I don't know if you can appreciate. Yeah, you can see some of the milled pockets on the clip side and then on the show side also. So there's both external and internal milling on this knife. So the back spacer is held by 4 screws, 2 on each side, and so it's very secure, very well placed. The pivot is a steel pivot, as I've mentioned. On the clip side, it has that beautiful copper collar that matches the back spacer. The pivot itself on the inside runs on caged ceramic bearings. The detent ball is also ceramic. The lock on the knife is a frame lock, and it has an over travel stop and a lock bar insert. There you can see the lock bar insert. It has an early lockup, maybe 10 or 15 degrees. And there you can appreciate, I think, the over travel stop right there that shows through into the light. The pocket clip is beautiful. It is an embedded 3D machined titanium clip held by one external screw. It's got good retention, and it's easy to get in and out of your pants. And again, I want to bring attention to the milling that it has that mirrors the milling on the lower aspect of the blade. The ergonomics on the knife are really good. First of all, this is the perfect size. A 4.2-inch handle is just great. My hand gets on it great, and I have a little bit of room left over. My thumb falls right on the jimping, so it just feels great. This is just a sharpening choil. It's not designed to have your finger on it because you might be able to cut yourself there. The action of the knife, as I mentioned, it flips well, flips really hard coming out, and then it's one of those shakedown knives. It's not a free fall knife, but that's the way it's designed. We'll talk about the signage. The handle itself is sterile. On the show side, it has the Brad Southard's Maker's Mark, which is minimalistic and tasteful. And then on the clip side, it has the steel designation 20 CV and a note that it's made here in the USA, which is important to many of my viewers, I know. Both sides of the handle are completely sterile. I like that. We'll talk about the value of the knife. All this custom knife goodness goes for a base price of $600. Mine went for $640 because I got the micarta inlays and bronze anodizing on the handle. That's really reasonable for a custom knife made by Brad Southard himself, not any other manufacturer. I want to compare it to the McGinnis ProLine Mini Exo. And there is a lot of similarities here. Here, I'll pick them up. Look at these blades, how similar they are. They both have a high flat ground. They both have this upswept blade. They have jimping on the top and then a swell afterwards, and then this bird beak's coming down. These blades look nearly identical. And then the handles are very similar too. They're pretty much the same length. Obviously, this has a show side, this carbon fiber, and this has micarta on the show side, and then there's a little bit of milling there. They're both bronzed on this side, and they're about the same length and same shape. They're both frame locks. There are some differences in the knives. The clips are different, as you can tell. On the Southard Mini Tolk, we have a 3D machined embedded clip held by one screw, and on the McGinnis Mini Exo, we have a bent surface-mounted clip held by two screws. The lock bars are a little different. There is no lock bar insert on the McGinnis, just it's carbidized. And then on the lock bar, it's got an external lock bar cut. The Brad Southard chose to make his lock bar cut internally. And the pivots are a little different. This is a dome-shaped pivot, and this has the Torx bit there with the copper collar. I want to bring attention to how sweet this pivot is. They have a Torx 15 there. The rest of the Torx are T8, so it's really easy to work on this knife. And then it has a custom pivot on the other side too. So these two knives are children of the same mother. They are very similar. I just wanted to point that out. But we're here really to talk about the Mini Tolk, so I want to continue with that. So what do I think about the Southard Mini Tolk? I really like it. And that's an understatement because I really, really, really like this knife. I have been looking forward to this ever since I saw it at Blade 2017, and now finally I have it in my hands. And so are there opportunities for improvement? Well, initially he wanted to have a time frame from order to production at 5 to 6 weeks. Actually, with his first run, it took me 3.5 months to get this, but that's not a problem at all with me to get something of this quality and caliber. I've had several customs that have taken over a year, and that sort of takes the fun out of life when you have to wait over a year after you've paid your money. I don't mind waiting 3.5 months. And anytime you do the first run of anything, there's going to be speed bumps. I think he's going to be faster with it now that he's ironed out some of the bugs. Not a problem. Initially, when I saw pictures of the flipper tab, I thought it was going to be an issue because he didn't put jimping on the front part. It is not an issue at all. You can light switch it or button push it. It just flips like a maniac. No problem. The only criticism I would have is just a fit and finish detail. On the pocket clip, this is a 3D embedded clip. I prefer it with hidden screws rather than exterior screws, but that's just a minor thing. What do I like about the knife? First of all, I like that it's customizable. You get to choose the inserts, the color of your anodizing, the color of your backspacer. I love it that he matches the backspacer with the pivot collar regardless of what type of product you get. And I like it that it's made in Brad Southard's own shop by Brad Southard. So I'm going to discuss this a little bit. Is this a mid-tech knife or a custom knife? I'm going to call it a custom knife. I don't understand that fine line that exists between mid-tech. If he makes his custom knives in the same shop made only by him, and he makes the mid-tech in the same shop only by him, I'm going to just call it a custom. Because it's a lot of 200 rather than a lot of 20, I don't care at all. I get no satisfaction in knowing that I have something that no one else can get a hold of. Actually, that's why I do these videos. I want you guys to get a hold of this. I want you to own one of these mini Tolks. And I really like what he does. I like it when other knife manufacturers do that too. They give you these options. Olamic is famous for that. They'll have a model of a knife, and they'll have several aspects: the blade steel, the blade shape, the handle anodization or treatments, the back spacers, the clips. And Brian Nadal does that with his Micro Typhoon now, which he's opened up his orders for too. So I love it when knife makers do that, and I love that Southard did that too. Okay, so I really like the knife. You guys get it. You need to get one. Those of you who couldn't get your foot in the door on the first run, his books are closed right now. In the comments section, I'm going to put the website address so that when his books open up, you can get your name on the list, because you're going to want one of these Southard Mini Tolks. It is a great knife. It is the lightest and best from Brad Southard. Hey, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next House of Wisdom Lightest and Best Knife video.